and I am representing the 1NC. In Erica's 1AC, she states that same-sex marriages do not get federal benefits. And the reason for this is because marriage is defined as a union between one man and one woman. So why would they get federal benefits that married couples get, if they're not even considered married? In subpoint B, she said homosexual marriages are unequal. Once again, they're not acknowledged as married. So why would they be equal if they're not acknowledged as married? Federal law states the definition of marriage. Evan Daniels, The Ethics of Religious Liberal Commission, the Defense of Marriage Act, a sound public policy and responding to the Department of Justice advocacy of DOMA's partial overturn, July 29, 2011, December 1, 2012, page 3. Section 3 defines marriage and spouse for the purpose of federal law. Marriage is defined as the union between one man and one woman. Spouse refers to the marital partner of the opposite sex. Under Section 3, only one man/woman unions are recognized as marriage, thereby preempting any federal recognition of homosexual marriage, plural marriages, and other deviations from the traditional definition of marriage. It codifies what Congress long understood to be the definition of marriage. So therefore, we can't give them federal benefits because they're not technically considered married. In subpoint C, inequality in America is unconstitutional. Where in the Constitution does it state that inequality is unconstitutional? There are so many inequalities in the United States, and nowhere in the Constitution does it state what section. I want to know what article and what section it says this. This is saying that DOMA and the motivation towards gay and lesbians are based off religious beliefs, which is concluded to be unconstitutional, but nowhere does it specify that inequality is. In contention 2, she says the full faith and credit clause will be recognized. This evidence is only stating that the recognition of homosexual marriage, which it notes for a reason will be inevitable because of the requirements of the FFCC. And the FFCC is not required to acknowledge same-sex marriage. William Bowd, Constitution Law Center, Stanford Law School, Beyond DOMA of State and Federal Law Statutes, June 1st, 2012, December 1st, 2012, page 1391. The Constitution provides that full faith and credit shall be given to each state in the public acts, records, and judicial proceedings of each state, and the Congress may by general laws prescribe the manner of which states' acts, record, proceedings shall be proved, and the effect thereof. The full faith and credit clause has sometimes been cited by those who urge that states have a duty to recognize marriages from other states, but that clause has generally not been interpreted to extend as broadly to legislative rulings as it does to the judicial judgments. Moreover, even if one thinks that marriage are entitled to full faith and credit as public acts, records, and judicial proceedings, the full faith and credit clause empowers Congress to decide what effect those records and proceedings shall have. And Congress has explicitly provided that states are not required to recognize same-sex marriages from other states. In her contention 2, subpoint B, she says that restoring the full faith and credit clause will cause states to validate marriages from other states. But this piece of evidence states that if a couple who is legally married in one state moves to another state, they will be able to receive their benefits according to DOMA's repeal. But they will still continue to not be recognized by the state just because they're recognized on a federal level, which is still represented as unequal no matter what argument. In subpoint C, she says that validating marriages will grant federal benefits to gay marriages. Okay, validating marriages between the same gender would grant federal benefits to gay marriages, but this piece of evidence is stating that repealing DOMA would redefine marriage. In order for us to validate the marriage, we would have to redefine what marriage is. And in subpoint D, she says federal benefits will result in constitutional equal rights. We can agree that same-sex marriages are given federal benefits. It will be assumed that they will be given constitutional equal rights, but just because this happens doesn't mean that it will restore equality. I now stand open for cross-examination.
Okay, Leah, you say for my subpoint B and A, you argue that why would they get the married benefits if they're not considered married, right?
Mm-hmm.
So would you say that, I just lost my train of thought. Sorry. Let's just go to contention 2 where you say that it won't restore equality, but would you agree that it would start to?
In which contention?
You say in D that just because we say that federal benefits will fulfill constitutional rights, but you say it won't restore equality, correct?
Well, you can restore a constitutional right, but it doesn't mean that everyone is going to view it as equal. Just because you start something doesn't mean that it'll also equal to the complete restoration. Just like with racism, just because everyone is considered equal doesn't mean that everyone is considered equal in everyone's view.
But from back then when there was racism to now, wouldn't you say that it is a lot more equal?
Yes, but that doesn't mean that it is equal.
But it's a lot more than
Yeah,
before.
but it's not
and it's
complete.
working towards that, correct?
Yeah, you can always work towards something, but that doesn't mean that it'll completely be equal.
Okay.
Ever.
So there's never an incident where you would say that it would become to complete equality.
Well, there is no example.
Okay, and on C you say that we would have to redefine marriage, correct?
Yes.
And what would you see wrong with that if it gives everybody equal rights?
What do you mean, what do I see wrong with that?
Because you say like, well, we're going to have to redefine marriage. Is that something you're opposed to?
It's not necessarily something that I'm opposed to, but it also brings up different arguments. You would have to go and define what marriage is from state to state, and every other state would have to agree with that in order.